Hey guys, welcome to the Week 12 report. I first wanted to talk about how I'm so thankful for Gaby making this logo for us, as we saw in the intro, and if maybe you guys got a sneak peek of it in the Sleeper app where I changed it first. It's awesome, and thank you again. Now, this week has had a lot of interesting games within the league, a lot of close games, and some playoff shakeups. In other news, there's been some big players going down with injuries and some players returning, which we'll get into the next segment. On to the news. We're starting out with a big injury for the Grizzlies this week and for A Small. Ja Morant came down with a shoulder injury, which required season-ending surgery for it. Some might say, where did this injury come from? He only played less than 10 games. Some say it's on the basketball court. Some say it's due to some John Wick injuries. But it's a big blow, especially to the Grizzlies, who also lost Marcus Smart and Desmond Bane recently. We'll definitely see some improved minutes and fantasy points for any of their other guards on their team. Which, if you're looking for a guard, I would look to the Grizzlies to see if there's a free agent for them to pick up. Now on to a trade that happened this week. The Pistons and the Wizards, two of the worst, teams in the league as of standings wise right now, traded. I don't exactly know why the Pistons did this. I mean, the only thing I can think of is freeing up cap space. But for the Wizards, it was a big dub. They get 2 second-round picks and Marvin Bagley, who's been somewhat of a bust, but hasn't really had the time to prove himself on the Pistons, I feel like. But it's a big dub for the Wizards. Getting 2 second-round picks for literally nothing is pretty huge. Pretty huge. Pistons, this is not going to do anything for you. It might even hurt you because you need that draft capital. On to the final piece of news with Draymond Green returning from suspension. He put Rudy Gobert in a headlock, as we can see in this picture, which earned him a suspension for a couple of weeks because he was, getting out of control, and Adam Silver didn't like what he was seeing. Which this will be huge for Noah. Draymond returning is going to help get his fantasy points. But hopefully, nothing else results Draymond in another suspension, because he taunted retiring in this last suspension for some reason. He couldn't handle being in the wrong, I guess, which is ridiculous. But we'll see in the scores how this affected Noah, though, even though Draymond didn't play at all. Now, on to the scores. As you can see here, we'll start from the top and go down to the bottom. The Void, played Aiden in a close game, less than 20 points, which, is a player's difference pretty much. 197.25 to 180. I had 2 top picks and a worst pick, and Aiden had 2 top picks and 3 worst picks. It's a close game, war of attrition. He did lose Ja Morant, which was tough. You would think if Ja Morant stayed healthy and at least played 1 game this week, that would have been enough to, make it even closer, even get him the dub. On to the next game, which was really insanely close. The Fraggle Rock 9 played Uncle O'Grimacy's Cream in a heater of a match. Riley was down by a lot with only 2 players remaining that played on Saturday, which was Trae Young and Austin Reeves. Both needed about 40 points combined to win this matchup, and they did, barely. They were projected, to both of them score a lot more, but a little bit of choking didn't affect Riley in the end, making him 12-0 now. Ryan had a league best 5 top picks, and it still wasn't enough to beat the undefeated Riley. On to the next matchup. The Codfather played Teo, and Teo, handled business. He was sick of these close matchups and came from behind and won this week. With a player left to play, he was down only a point, and he handled business. The player didn't choke a 1-point deficit. He had 4 top picks, which seemed to be needed to win this week, bringing them now both 3-8. On to the next matchup. Team Belushio played the Striped Pajamas. Sherm had a tying league best 5 top picks, but with a worse pick, still giving him the dub over Brian by 50 points. Brian had a couple injuries, but still would not have moved the ticker to give him the dub if he replaced them. On to the next, an interesting matchup. Team Lobster played Packed Nicely in a close game where Noah had 4 top picks and Will had 2 top picks. And this would have been very interesting if Noah did not play Draymond Green at the starting center. He was projected to the return to play against the Bucks at the end of the week, and he didn't. He's still working on his conditioning, and due to that fact, Noah lost, giving him now 3-9, and Will is now 4-8. You just hate to see it, you know. He had some players on. Noah had some players on his bench that could have, moved the ticker and given him the win, in a much needed win where some of these bottom teams are now losing out on playoff hopes. On to the next matchup. Jake, Team Army Jr. and Zom, Team Zomt, played, and Zom handled business, won by 70 points, and an outright beating of a matchup. He didn't even have any top picks or worst picks, which proved to not matter. And he scored a league best 256.19, which is pretty amazing because in recent weeks we've seen the top scoring be closer and closer to 300. Now the final matchup, I Could Go for a Beer, played Team Web Warrior in an interesting matchup. Gal had 3 top picks, 3 worst picks. Webb had 2 top picks, 2 worst picks, but it still wasn't close enough to be 1 or 2 players away from going either way. Luke handled business, and now he's 8-4, and Webb is now a league worst 2-10. You hate to see it. You also hate to see for Webb. He also had some injuries. Jimmy Butler's been out for a bit, so if he was replaced or some of his other injured players were replaced, there might have been a different story, but I think Luke still would have won even if they were replaced. Now on to our best players of the week. Donovan Mitchell scored 52.5 points for Cold Flash this week against the Nets in Paris. He put up 45 points, 6 assists, and 12 rebounds in a stellar game by Donovan Mitchell to get a dub in Paris for our French fans. Now, the other best player who scored the most points this week was Domantas Sabonis, who scored 53.25 points for Riley in a game against the Pistons, where he put up a triple-double, 37 points, 13 assists, and 10 rebounds, which proved to be very much needed for Riley to get the close dub against Ryan. All right, now for the free agents this week, we have 3 great free agents, starting with TJ McConnell, who's filling in the role for Halliburton, playing bigger minutes and getting fantasy points while doing it. Longtime Sixer, love him. Would be a great addition for anybody who needs a guard. But when Halliburton comes back, he might not be as viable. On to the next one, Lonnie Walker, who's only played 1 game this week against the Cavs in Paris, so not much to go off of, but he played phenomenally, played big minutes and got those fantasy points for doing it. Would be a great addition for people. And finally, Vince Williams, who recently signed an extension for like 3 years, is playing big minutes at the center. And I expect him to play more and more for the Grizzlies as the season goes on, especially if the Grizzlies fall out of playoff contention. Considering, what we talked about earlier with them missing guards for a while, it seems more and more likely that they'll just be playing for development towards the end of the season. Now, on to our next segment where I show you some interesting video for the week. We see here the Bucks played the Kings this week in an exciting overtime thriller. As we see here, Damian Lillard's driving up the court, then to OT and shoots, and hits an absolute dagger against the Kings for his 25th, 100th career 3. You just love to see it. He does a signature celebration, and it's gonna be dangerous for these Bucks if Dame Lillard starts to get comfortable on the Bucks and starts putting up daggers and game winners and other crazy leader-esque stats for the Bucks. They could very well be a team that comes for the Celtics for the 1 seed. But just want to show you that. Love to see it. Even Robin Lopez loved it. Love that guy. He's a caveman. On to the next segment. Now, after we've talked about the scores and everything and what's going on with the league, now let's look at the standings. And they're looking pretty interesting. As we see at the top, Riley's 12-0, nearing a playoff clinch here in the coming week. If Riley wins and Aiden loses, he will clinch a playoff spot, which it's already pretty much clinched since he's undefeated. Zom is not too far behind, though, on a 2-game win streak at 9-3, coming for Riley in the 2 seed. He does have the most points for in the entire league, so that is a dangerous team to play against. At the 3 and 4 seed and 5th seed, we have our 8 and 4 teams with Yarm, Luke, and Sherm. At the 6th seed, we have Ryan, who recently lost in a tough matchup against Riley at 7 and 5. His team looks great, just some tough matchups in recent weeks. On to me, the Void. We're now in the 7th seed after beating Small, climbing up that ladder with a 5-game win streak. We have our toughest matchup yet against Riley. We'll see how that goes. Finally, in the 8th seed, we got Brian, who's on a 5-game losing streak the opposite way as to me. Dealing with injuries, but still holds on to a playoff spot. If he can stay focused and keep his injured guys in check, he could keep that playoff spot, but it's tough to see. Now, on to our bottom half of the league. Aiden's in 9th seed, 5 and 7 after losing to me. Let's go. Following that, at the 10 seed, we got Will, who's 4 and 8. And then to wrap it up at the bottom, we have Teo moving up 2 spots in a win this week, going 3 and 9. The Codfather and Team Lobster both lost this week, and they're both 3 and 9 as well. Noah is on a 6-game losing streak. He would have loved to end it this last week, but it'll have to continue. And finally, rounding out the league, Team Web Warrior, 2 and 10. Still has a chance at playoffs, but it's very, very increasingly more unlikely as the weeks go on. We'd have to see somewhat of a miracle or an insane run come out of Web for him to have a chance. And finally, we'll look into the matchups for next week and see what the interesting storylines will tell. Now, on to the next matchups. The first one being me against Riley, the battle of the win streaks. It should be interesting considering Riley's coming off of a close win last week. We'd like to, as a fan of Kyle, myself, we'd like to see that continue and hopefully break the win streak for Riley, giving him his first loss of the season. And not to toot Riley's horn, but this would give him 3 losses in the entire league's history. Riley is currently at 28-2 for the league's history in total since the first season last year, which also marks that last week being the 30th game this league has seen, which is pretty awesome. I can't wait to see the next 30 games transpire. On to the next matchup, we have Uncle Grimacy's Cream against I Could Go for a Beer. Which should be pretty interesting. 2 of the playoff teams going at it. Some interesting storylines if Ryan does win. If Luke wins, that further solidifies his place at the top of the league. And that should be interesting to keep an eye on. And finally, we have our rival matchup of the week, maybe even of the year. Teo is playing Sherm, which is should be a bloodbath. I can see multiple cars going through houses, multiple stabbings. It should be interesting. Right now, Sherm has the edge. Considering he is also a playoff team, it's going to be a tough shot for Teo to win. But I feel like since it's a rivalry, Teo might see some red in his eyes and try and take out Sherm to shake up the playoffs. But that's it. We'll move on to the final notes now. The final notes here. Great. Love to see these matchups going. I'm glad to see the participation. Um, just wanted to thank everybody for playing, keeping active. Um, some of these matchups are really close and it's heartbreaking, but keep your heads up, Kings. Don't be disheartened by a close loss. There's still plenty of time left in the season. I just wanted to also announce people to fill out the Google Sheet again. Once we get at least half the league filling that out, I'll make a video for introducing those teams. I also want to make a video for going over the scoring and how to play. Which brings me to my point. Sleeper, please make a website, like make support for it. I hate making these videos off the phone, but it works regardless. I just want it to be easier and for me to be more presentable if it was on the website. Next, I think I have some ideas for next season. One being a prize for the person who has the most top picks throughout the season. So there's that little trophy for having the most top picks in the season. I would keep track of it, and then we'll see. I'll decide on a prize for it. If you guys want that to start this season, I can go back and track it. If not, I think that would be a great thing for next season. And we'll have like a little prize and little show for it. And you'll get that. If we do that, the prize will be given out at the end of the regular season. Now, the final piece. I'm recording this after the Eagles game. Sorry, Eagles fans. That's tough to watch. I fortunately didn't have to watch it. I would be mad too if I did. I was not feeling good this afternoon, so maybe that was a premonition on my half. But hopefully, to soften the wound, fuck them Cowboys. They got absolutely railed by the Green Bay Packers. Let's fucking go. Other than that, I just wanna reiterate, thank you guys. Fuck you, Riley. I'm gonna try and beat you this week, and I'm excited to see this bloodbath for Sherman Teo. So yep.